episode 6, and we're going to talk a little about the 37. We're going to get back to some actual Fargo truck stuff. We've had an interesting experience with this truck in that in the process of mocking it up, we cut up a box and painted it to kind of match the rest of the truck. It was a rusty old box from a slightly different year truck, and we took a picture of it, and we put the picture on Rat Rod Magazine's Facebook page, and it got a whole ton of likes, like 28,000 likes, and it was like, woo, I'm cool. But anyway, one really positive thing did come from that, besides meeting some interesting people, contacting some interesting people along the way, and making some interesting Facebook friends from that picture. We also made contact with a guy named Danny Malurick out of Sheridan, Wyoming, who saw the picture of the truck and said, I have the perfect motor for that truck. I have a 241 Hemi. And we made arrangements to go down to his place in Sheridan, and we did, and we bought the Hemi and brought it back, and like it's together assembled running condition, and which is awesome, because up here in Canada, I don't know how common these are down in the U.S., but up here in Canada, I've never seen one of these running for sale. I've seen lots of them broken and in pieces for sale, but not running. So we bought this thing running, brought it up here, and we test ran it in the garage. So check it out. We got some footage of that. Check it out running. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Running Hemi, that's pretty awesome. You can see we were quite pleased about that. And that's motivated us a little bit. We still got a lot of other things, projects on the go here, including a Beetle. Maybe we'll talk about that more on another episode. And this Chevy 2 as well that we're working on for a friend. It's a bit of a barn find, but enough of that. We'll talk a little bit more about this, and then we'll get to the rant. This was a heavy truck, so the grill shell was fairly tall, and since we wanted this truck to have a low stance, the grill shell is actually too tall for us to have the stance that we wanted. So I removed some of it and done like a bit of a blend to keep it looking kind of ratty. And yeah, I took about 5 inches out of this grill shell, and again, trying to make it look like I haven't, like it's kind of just the way it is. Another thing we've done is we've mocked up some framework with wood to show where we want to run our frame rails. This is going to actually get changed because when we were mocking this up, we were working with a different motor as before we got the Hemi, and the Hemi exhaust pipes come out right here, and they'll actually basically be in the way because we're going to make some lake pipe style headers for this. So these are in the way, so I'm going to bend it down so it comes up earlier to hold it up here. We're using a straight axle from a 71 half-ton for the front suspension, and the same truck has provided the 8 3/4 Mopar rear end we're going to use in the rear. So we've also done some stuff where we've taken the sides off the hood, and we're going to use the sides. We're going to set it up once everything's in place that the sides will still go on, but it'll be like an option. If we want the hood sides, we'll put the sides. If we want the top, we'll put the top. If we want both, we'll put both. It'll be whatever we want this truck to have. And yeah, so we're looking forward to that as well. All the while trying to maintain the unmolested look of it, as far as we're sort of we've straightened out some dents, and that's pretty much all we've done to this thing, and all we plan on doing, other than maybe there are some rust holes we're probably going to fix with weld some pieces in. Rough mock-up of our rear frame here and how it'll have to come up like this, because we're going to use air suspension, and when we lower it down, we want the truck to actually sit on the ground. And this, where it's mocked up now, will roughly be its driving height. So it's a mock-up for now. I've got to get some suspension pieces so I can lay out exactly where I want the frame to be, but this is kind of a rough idea of where it'll be, and you won't see any of this because the box will cover all this up. And as you've seen in the picture, it'll look a lot like the picture that we showed you earlier in the episode. And again, our 8 3/4 this is from a 71 half-ton, the same one we put on the Winnebago frame. That's where this stuff came from. So we're making good use of our other vehicles. So that's our update on the 37 for now. But yeah, we're really enjoying the motor. Thanks to Danny for offering that up to us and selling it to us, and we're quite pleased. It's going to make it a real classic look to have a Hemi. It's hard to argue with the retro cool factor of a Hemi. So yeah, well, let's move on to the rant. Alright, so the rant. Today the rant is going to be something I call car show haters. And I've talked about haters before, but this is a specific kind of hater, or at least this specific hater made me angry. And I was at a show shortly after we came back and did the last video. So this was in early part of August. A show in Red Deer that was an all Mopar show. They typically get a pretty good turnout of exceptionally nice Mopars from around Alberta. Muscle cars, antiques, mostly muscle cars, mostly 60s into the 70s, some newer stuff, some PT Cruisers, some, a Viper. I think there was a Viper or two there, some interesting stuff. But in any case, the bulk of the show is exceptionally well restored 60s and 70s muscle cars. Now, I was there and a guy came in with I'm going to call it a rust rod, in that it wasn't modified as far as when you see a hot rod, be it a traditional hot rod or a rat rod, typically their stance is modified, their body lines are modified, things like that. This wasn't. It was basically a 38 that had no paint on it whatsoever. It was just rust from one end to the other. And don't get me wrong, nice looking rig as far as if you're into the rust rod thing. I didn't mind the look of the rig. It pulled in. My son and I, Stephen, we immediately went over and took a look at it because it was similar in year to our project, and we wanted to take a peek and see what the guy had done to it. Hood was closed. I talked briefly to the guy. He was quite proud how it had taken him 3 months to build the vehicle, driven it around and so on. And in any case, we came back and the hood was open and he wasn't around, and it was a small block Chevy in it. And I've voiced my disdain for that before. And then I looked underneath the rig and saw that it was an S10 chassis. He'd put the body on an S10 chassis and put a small block Chevy in it. Okay, and if that's your thing, good for you. Okay, that it's a functioning hobby car. You took a cool body and you stuck it on a modern functional chassis so you can drive it around and you're having fun with it. That's cool. I'm fine with that. Not my kind of thing. Not my kind of car. I didn't. I've talked before about how I don't like to see Chevy motors in Mopars, and so I obviously wasn't in love with the car, but truck. But in any case, whatever. That's his deal, and we're fine with that. Now, end of the show comes, and the award presentation is going on, and I have the misfortune, I guess, of being near this gentleman while the awards are being given out, and I can hear him discussing his disdain for the other vehicles in the show. And he went on to rant about how the truck, something like what he had was a lot better in the sense that he can drive whenever he wants. It only took so much money to do, and these other cars a lot of them were trailer queens, and what good is it to have something like that, and blah blah blah. A lot of negative comments about show cars in general. Now, that said, I'm not a show car guy. I don't spend a lot of time at shows. I went to this show this year with Stephen because it's a show I used to go to a lot with my dad, and I wanted to see how it had been. I hadn't been to the show in years, and I wanted to see what it was like this year. And I thought to myself, as this guy was talking, it made me quite angry. And it made me angry because these guys have, you look at these cars, and regardless of what you think of them, time and money put into these cars is, quite frankly, unbelievable. Even just in time, most of the cars that would have been winning, certainly in the judged classes, the cars that were winning undoubtedly had more time spent on them in detailing and cleaning than I did building my 49. Okay, and quite a bit more, obviously, than 3-month build guy. And so to me, I found that quite offensive. In that, as much as I'm not a show car guy, I don't go in to a show like that and poo all over the cars and say, what good is this and what good is that and blah blah blah. And I'm not going to do that. And why would I? Those cars have been put together with a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of love by the people who own them. That's their car. Cool. You know what I mean? When they want a car, the car they want, that's what they've got. They've got it right there. They've chosen to spend their money and their time and their energy painstakingly restoring these muscle cars. And so I found it quite offensive that this guy was, basically coming into their backyard, their place, their thing, or what they do. It's like, going into the Saddle Dome at a Flames game and talking about how much hockey sucks. Like, why would you do that? You're at the show where these guys are showing off their work, their in some cases their lives' work. The only car they've ever restored and the only car they ever will restore, or build or drive or whatever. So I found it offensive, and so yeah, that guy's. If I see that guy again, I might say something to him about how awesome his S10 build is on his 38. But in any case, we'll see whether that ever happens again. But yeah, that's the rant for the day. Is that don't go into someone else's cool time and mock it. And I like to think that I don't do that, even though there are lots of areas of the hobby that aren't my thing. I don't feel I mock them. I feel that I like to observe them. I'm not going to take part in the muscle car thing anymore. I'm not going to take part in antiques. I'm never going to build an antique and take it into a parade or anything like that. But I certainly respect the work that those guys do. That's their cool. This is my cool here. So, in any case, have a good one.